Hey friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and if you have been around my channel for a long time, you know that I typically talk about a lot of canning and food preservation and pantry content, and we are going to get back to that next week. You can see I've got canning jars up there empty and ready to go. We are almost into heavy food preservation season, and I'm going to be bringing you that content all the way through the rest of the summer after this week. But in this week's video, I wanted to talk about something a little different. This isn't my usual content, but I felt like it was something important that I wanted to talk about. As of today, the day this video is coming out, little Abigail is exactly 6 months old. So she was born on January 6th, and if you haven't seen her birth video, I'll link it in the video description. It was quite a doozy. But when I posted that birth video, I got flooded with messages both here and on Instagram from women who are in their late 30s and 40s who wanted me to speak to what it's like to be postpartum at age 44. I turned 44 a week after I gave birth to Abigail. And being in your mid-40s definitely does have unique challenges. I have 9 children. Abigail is number 9. I had my first child. I got pregnant at age 25, gave birth to him at age 26. And I've had children all through, the rest of my 20s and 30s, and I've now had 2 babies in my 40s. And I will say that being in your 40s does present some unique challenges. And so I thought it was important to speak to those women, since it was my baby's 6-month half birthday, I guess. It felt like a good time to put out this video. So if this isn't your cup of tea, you can skip, and I'll be back next week with content that is more suitable for you. But even if you're not postpartum or thinking about being pregnant in advanced maternal age, maybe it might be interesting to you to learn a little bit about how a mother of 9 has been managing all of her duties while being postpartum at age 44. So let's go ahead and dive in. Before I get into specifically postpartum and what that's been like, let's talk a little bit about the pregnancy. So I was 43 through her pregnancy, and like I mentioned, this is my second pregnancy in my 40s, and I will say there was really no difference being pregnant in my 40s versus some of my earlier pregnancies. In fact, my very hardest physically pregnancy was my first when I was 25. I had severe morning sickness with that pregnancy and had all sorts of health complications. I had pregnancy-induced Bell's palsy that paralyzed half of my face throughout the whole late second and third trimesters. I really struggled. And then ever since, my pregnancies have gotten easier. And so I will say with Abigail's pregnancy at age 43, I did have morning sickness, but it definitely wasn't the worst. And what I found having all of these pregnancies to compare to, I don't think age is necessarily a factor in how sick you are. There are other maybe dietary, how hydrated you are, certain vitamin content levels in your body, or maybe just your hormones and how that baby's hormones are circulating through your body that have a lot more to do with how sick you are, because I can't figure out a predictable pattern with all of my pregnancies in what would make me sick in some and not in others. So sickness wasn't an issue. I will say though that the unique challenge for me of being 43 when I was pregnant was I was more tired than I was with earlier pregnancies, and that's to be expected because just in general as we get in our 40s we're more tired even if we're not pregnant than we were in our 20s or our 30s. So I just had to allow myself to rest a little more. People always ask me questions about did I do anything special to conceive in my 40s, and I didn't do anything different in my 40s than what I was doing in my 30s. I eat a very whole foods, healthy diet. I haven't had fast food in probably 15 years. I don't eat prepackaged, foods from the store. I just try to eat really clean. I try to drink enough water. I avoid alcohol, pharmaceutical drugs, things like that, and just try to keep my body as clean and prepared as possible for pregnancy and breastfeeding. So that wasn't any different, in my 40s versus my 30s or my 20s. But something that I did do differently during the course of the pregnancy was I knew that I was at a higher risk for certain genetic issues like Down syndrome. And so I did do anatomy scans and some testing throughout the pregnancy, not because I would have done anything about the fact that I had a Down syndrome baby. It was just that I wanted to be prepared because I'm a busy mom with 8 other children. I needed to know if when my baby was born, if there was a high risk that baby would need some special medical care that would take me out of the home. I just wanted to be prepared for that and to be able to prepare my family for me not being around. And so I did a lot of preparing meals and things to make it easier for them, because that can happen even if you don't have a Down syndrome baby. But having the testing done did help ease a little bit of my worries about how my family would handle a child with special needs, particularly in those first few months postpartum. And thankfully it wasn't an issue for us, but that was something that I did differently in my pregnancies in my 40s versus other times. But what I will say is that the postpartum experience is definitely different in my mid-40s than it has been before that. So let's just dive right into it. I guess the first thing of note is that it has taken longer to bounce back, and that is to be expected. Just like I was more tired during the pregnancies in my 40s, I am more tired postpartum than I was. And so it has taken me longer this time to feel back to normal versus how it was when I was younger. And that's in many ways. I noticed with my last baby, I was 41 when she was born and turned 42 about a month later. Weight loss was nearly impossible when I had baby number 8. And with my younger babies, weight would just kind of fall off with breastfeeding, or even if it didn't fall off quickly, I didn't necessarily have to work to take it off because I had that young metabolism. My hormones weren't working against me like they are when you're in your 40s and maybe in perimenopause. But that has been a very challenging part of the postpartum experience in my 40s, has just been that it is slower to bounce back. It's slower to bounce back physically in terms of your energy levels. It's slower to bounce back with your weight, and it's slower to bounce back just hormonally, feeling right and feeling like you have a handle on things. It took me this time maybe 4 to 5 months to actually feel like myself again. And so there is that part of it that has been particularly difficult. Now, here's another thing that I don't think necessarily has to do with age so much, or it could be number of pregnancies, but maybe not, because I know women who've only had 1 or 2 kids that have struggled with this same issue. But for me, once I hit my 40s, the back pain after a pregnancy has been extremely debilitating, and that has to do with a lack of core strength and me having muscle tears. I'm now in physical therapy to help stabilize and activate my core more after all these years of childbearing. But I think that as we get into our 40s, a lot of people already are feeling back pain. You know, our joints get stiffer. We're losing some flexibility. Maybe we're not as physically active, like with exercise and things, because our lives get really busy with life, and so we don't have as much time to keep up with exercise physically, and so we're more prone to back pain. So when you're postpartum, you add that challenge of your whole spinal column changing and all of your muscles changing during pregnancy. It's going to be exacerbated when you're postpartum in your 40s. So I've had to be very intentional about focusing on my core strength. Like I said, I'm doing physical therapy, and I think that's something that women in their 40s should really be aware of. Not just that, but your pelvic floor. So having a lot of children can weaken your pelvic floor, but also just age can weaken your pelvic floor. All of your muscles get weaker. And so that's another unique challenge with women in your 40s. And so seeing a physical therapist that specializes in core issues postpartum, which your core is also linked to your pelvic floor, all of that can be really helpful and prevent problems that are going to arise and be worse later in life if you don't deal with them in your 40s while you're recovering. So let's talk about some of the challenges in daily life when you are postpartum in your 40s. Here's the biggest thing that I've noticed is that there seems to be a lot less cultural grace for women in their 40s when they're recovering postpartum. And I think it's because people expect women at this age to already have a handle on things, to be extremely capable. And so there aren't a lot of people reaching out to help. Maybe there isn't that village there for the older mom in the same way that there might be for a young mom in her 20s, where everybody recognizes that she's young, she might be inexperienced, and she needs the village. When you get to your 40s, people, I guess, just think, oh, she's probably got a handle on it. So that is hard. And then coupled with that, it can feel very lonely because you in your 40s might be one of the only women in your circles that's still in that postpartum phase, that is recovering, that has small babies, that's nursing. And so you can look around and look at all of your peers that might be approaching empty nest season or are just dealing with the unique challenges of teenagers or middle schoolers, whereas you're still in the baby phase, and you can feel like maybe those people don't understand why you're not able to participate in the activities that they're doing, or go out and hang out with them in the ways that they're able to do because they have much more freedom than you. You're still tied down with a baby, with a nursing infant. And then on the flip side, if you hang out with mothers that have young babies your age, you can often feel old and maybe not like the hip, young, cool mom like they are. And so as an older mother, there is an opportunity to capitalize on that and to help those mothers and to practice a Titus II mentorship type role with those younger mothers. But sometimes that age gap can be a barrier to actually making friends and having deep, meaningful relationships. And so it does sometimes feel very isolating and lonely. And if you're already in a postpartum season where your emotions are heightened and you're dealing with maybe some postpartum depression or anxiety or things, that loneliness can really exacerbate those feelings. And so that's why it's important to seek out like-minded women. And the great thing about social media is that there are tons of them out there that you can connect with and who can help you feel less alone. And if you're someone who's feeling like that, reach out to me on Instagram. I would be happy to talk about those unique challenges with you and maybe help pull you through this very difficult and unique season that not a lot of other women are going to experience. So the final area that I want to talk about that is unique to being postpartum in your 40s is how it impacts maybe your faith, your spiritual life, and your perspective on motherhood. It is such a blessing. A lot of people talk about the difficult parts or the hard sides of being an older mom, and maybe people view it as a very negative thing, being an older mom, but I want to encourage you about how it is beautiful and wonderful, because my mindset, my perspective is so different holding a newborn at age 44 versus how it was at age 26. When I was 26 and I was a new mom and I was a young mom, I didn't have a lot of the confidence that comes from just that feminine confidence of being a woman in your 40s. Perspective changes. Whether you are a mother or not in your 40s, you just really start to feel like confident in who you are. And that carries over into motherhood. And so it's just being sure that, the reassurance that you have a handle on this and not questioning every little thing that you do. Now, if you're a mom that's had multiple children and you're having your babies in your 40s, there is a lot of reassurance in that, look, these older kids, they survived, they made it through. We recognize how resilient children truly are. And so it's just different right now. Holding my 9th baby in my 40s, it's just like, she's going to be okay. I'm not questioning what I'm doing. I've got a handle on it, and I can just truly sit back and enjoy her and soak in every moment. Because you also, in your 40s, there's something about this, at least for me, that time starts to feel different. I feel like you experience time differently. We're sort of midlife. We recognize how fast that first half of our life went. If you have older children, you recognize how fleeting their childhood was. I mean, my oldest son will turn 18 in a month, and he's a legal adult. And so while I'm looking at this boy that's on the cusp of manhood, while also holding a newborn baby and knowing that it's just going to be a blink and she's going to be 18, it forces you to slow down and just enjoy every moment of it. And I mean, her babyhood is flying by, even though I'm enjoying it. I can't believe she's 6 months old. It's still going fast because of how busy life is in your 40s. But I feel like I won't have any regrets because I really am taking the time to soak it in. And it's just special. I wish I could articulate why it's different, but it truly is. And maybe women in their 40s that have newborns are kind of getting a taste of what it's like to be grandparents. Maybe this is comparable because with age and time comes the recognizing how precious life is and how fleeting the moments are. You know, when you're a grandparent, you've watched your children grow up, and now they're having families, and this baby is just so precious. And I just feel like maybe there is a little taste of that in having a newborn baby in your 40s because, I mean, the clock's ticking. Time is just flying by, and you just want to soak in every moment, and babies are just so much fun. With all that said, here is my, I guess, final takeaway on what I would advise women who are thinking about having a baby in their 40s, whether it's your first baby or your 12th baby. Don't let the world scare you. I feel like women's health in the 40s is just this black hole. It's like this area of health care that nobody really talks about. I mean, we're just we enter perimenopause not prepared for it. We go into menopause even. Nobody wants to talk about it like it's this dirty topic or something. And there's a lot of fear-based things out there about having a baby in your 40s. And I guess I want to dispel that and encourage you that it is actually a really beautiful thing. If you take care of your body and your health, you eat a good diet, you focus on getting extra rest, and because you need it whether you're pregnant or not, you need extra rest in your 40s. You take care of your joints and your back and your core, and you're doing light exercise and things to protect your body from the effects of pregnancy at this age, you're going to be fine. And then you're just going to reap the blessings of having a baby later in life, which is just this ability to soak in the moments and recognize how precious life is. And I don't know, I can't imagine not having experienced this. If all of the fear that everybody was spewing to me, if I had bought into it, and I would have missed out on one of the most precious moments and times of my life with my baby Abigail. So you do have to just let go of perfection when you're in your 40s. A lot of us have very busy either careers or already have older children, and our families are really busy. And so you do have to exercise a lot of grace. You know, you're not as young as you were. You can't just speed through activities and, do life the way you could in your 20s and 30s. But just because it's different than life in your 20s and 30s doesn't mean it's bad. It has its advantages and its beauty in its own way. And I feel like it's extremely sanctifying and pulling me at least nearer to the Lord in this whole experience of having a baby at this age of life. So a lot of people ask, would I have another baby? And I've always said that I'm open to whatever the Lord says. I feel very complete, and in some ways would love to be done, to put this season of life behind me and focus on what's next. I have 9 beautiful children, but we all know perimenopause is wild, and even with my best efforts, God's plan might be different. So we're just going to go with the flow. So, and obviously having a baby in your 40s, I've had 2 now, and it can't be that terrible, or else I would absolutely be doing everything and moving heaven and earth not to do it again, and that just isn't the case. So, all right, friends, if you made it through all of that, thank you for being here. I hope this was an encouragement to some of you. Just wanted to update you on how life is. It's doing great. Things are falling into place. We're really getting into a rhythm with little Miss Abby. She has a really nice nap schedule and a great sleep schedule at night, which is super helpful when you're a lady in your 40s that really needs her rest. And she's just a beautiful addition to the family. Everybody loves her. It's been great to watch the older children with her. It's just, I imagine them as my kids are approaching adulthood, and I look at my big boys holding this baby, and it's just a picture of we're just maybe 5 to 10 years away from them holding their own babies, and it's just a beautiful thing for them to get that experience with a little one, with a little sibling. So, all right, guys, we are going to be back next week with more homestead adventures, back to my typical content. But I just felt like this was important information that I wanted to get out there to encourage a lot of you that have sent me messages about what it's been like so far. So happy 6 months to little Miss Abigail. We are going to now head off. Speaking of that, she's napping, and I'm going to go see if she's awake, and we will be back next week, friends. All right.